schemas and the fact that that's coloring our information. We have a schema set up. We have a schema of a ball game, of a post office, and that previous schema leads to changes and reconstructions of a current or post or later memory for the event. This with MPIs is the exact opposite direction, which is interesting if you think about it, but it's the exact opposite direction. What it demonstrates is that you have a memory for an event, and then information you're getting at a later time point leads to a changing of that original memory. Okay, and so this in particular, this is now a fantastic example of how reconsolidation could be leading to this effect. Okay, and so once again, hint, hint, know this. Know how reconsolidation may be related to post-event, to the MPI, to post-event information changing the previous event. Okay, if you can't, I've sort of said it already in this video, but if you are having a hard time connecting those concepts together, email me. Okay, and I can send an email, or I can explain it. I'd like you to be able to know it already. I think at this point you should be able to put those two concepts together and figure out how the misinformation effect caused by an MPI could be related to reconsolidation. Okay, and so the slide before was a traffic accident and a stop sign. In your textbook, I won't go through that example. Same concept. Okay, possible explanations. Okay, one of them is reconsolidation, so know that. Other possible explanations: memory trace replacement hypothesis argues that it could be that the MPI is impairing or replacing memories that were formed during the original event. So that would be that, there's like only so many things we can remember. This would be like an interference effect. This may be a blocking effect. New information comes in, replaces the old information in some way. That's a possibility. Retroactive interference, another version of blocking, right? We've got interference going here. More recent learning interferes with memory for something in the past. In the original memory trace, however, the difference here is it's not actually replaced. It's just conflicting with, is another hypothesis. And then a source monitoring error is that we may have a difficult time recognizing when we heard smashed. And we know that they smashed, but we can't quite tell whether it was in the video that it smashed and there's broken glass, or it was later on in the question that it was smashed. Personally, so these are all classic cognitive hypotheses. These hypotheses, all three of these, came before we knew about reconsolidation at all. Okay, and so know them. They're in the textbook. They're fairly common sense, but know the three possible explanations. But really know that reconsolidation seems to explain this effect better than any of these three. Okay, real-world application, eyewitness testimony. I don't think I'm going to go through this in this video. Okay, again, it's in your textbook. It's just a real-world example, an applied example of the same concepts we're talking about. Do know it. I'm not telling you it's not important. It's in the text, it's in the lectures, but given that I'm doing this as a video right now and whatnot, I think that you can, it's going to be fairly repetitive. You can get this from the textbook. So do read it, get it from the textbook, okay? But know the results, know the effects, for instance, of Stanley versus Johnson, know weapons focus, okay? Know the weapons focus effect and its effect on eyewitness testimony, know the source monitoring effect with the teacher and the robber. Okay, that's another real-world example of source monitoring due to familiarity. These are we've talked about it already. I've already gone through it. I won't more in this video. Do read it. Do know it. Okay, so I'm going to move on in the slides. I'm going to move down about 5 slides or so past the eyewitness testimony, and I'm continuing now on the slide. How far can the power of suggestion go? Okay. And so this is now going to be talking about the false memory effect. And what we're really talking about is the possible, so to some extent we're suggesting, right? I mean, these MPIs are they're kind of placing post-event information. They're posting little pieces and changing our original memory. There's a misinformation, and to some extent this is a matter of suggestibility. So the question is, well, just how far can this go? Are we just like tweaking memories a little bit, or are we really just playing around with things? Or can we actually implant memories? Can we implant false memories? Like, can we create a full memory in somebody of something that didn't exist? The answer appears to be yes. You may know this example too from Psych 100 or from Social Psych, so I'll go through it fairly quickly. It's in your textbook. Lost in the Mall, it's called. And what it was they're given descriptions of 4 different events that happened in the person's life. Okay, so each participant gives the investigator 3 vignettes of stories that happen. Okay. Oh, family members. I'm sorry. Family members of the participants give 3 stories of things that happened to the participant. So the participant went fishing with his dad when he was 8. The participant once cut his knee on the fireplace. The participant once, whatever. 3 different events from their childhood that they get from like their mother. Okay, and then 1 fake memory that didn't actually happen. And in this case, it's the Lost in the Mall memory. Okay, and so they're given these 3 events, and they're given this Lost in the Mall, and they were told, when you were 8, you were lost in the mall type of thing, and your mom was looking for you, and it took 2 hours, and finally they found you, and it was really quite nerve-wracking, and you were very upset, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. They're then asked to write down as many of the facts that they can remember about each of those stories as possible, or to say, I don't know. And they did that for 5 days, 5 days in a row. They had to write for each one. And what was found was that after the 5 days, often people on the first day would say, didn't remember. Okay, so I've got, next slide is the results. And you can see blue is true events remembered, and you can see that's very high, as it should be. False events remembered how? Interview 1, interview 2, interview 3. So they did it 3 different times after writing them down for 5 days. First interview, everybody was like, nah, I don't remember being lost in the mall. Don't remember that. Second interview, 20% of people said yes. Now I remember it. And third interview, let's say 25% of people said yes, did remember it. So what's going on here again, recognize this is still a source mongering error. They now remember it, but they can't, they're misattributing where the information came from. They're like, God, I do remember something about that. And your memory, and the memory is now constructing that scene. Still 75 to 80% of the people are able to get it right. But the fact that 20 to 25% of the people now remember being lost in the mall when they were 8 and say that's a real memory of my childhood is, it's sort of amazing. It's sort of terrible, and it's sort of amazing. But it just indicates just how susceptible our memory systems are to suggestibility. And it's really quite interesting if you think about it. Another real-world example of this is, just imagine, you're talking to a friend, you're talking to your spouse, whatever, and both of you both participated in an event 5 years ago, and you're now remembering what was happening, or a week ago. You had an argument a week ago, whatever. You had an argument a week ago, and now you're talking about it again, and you're like, you said this, and the other person's like, I absolutely did not say that, and the other, you absolutely did. I remember exactly the words you used. I this, I that. One person remembers one way, one person remembers the other way, and both of you are 100% confident in that memory. Well, you can't both be right. Somebody has to be wrong. And while we always think we're the ones that were right, odds are half the time we're the ones that are wrong. But it's really, that's what's going on. Like, this reconstruction of memories almost necessitates that we're going to be wrong sometimes, but be 100% confident. Like, completely gone. So they do studies sometimes. They'll do like this Lost in the Mall study, where they not only ask them, was this a false memory or a real memory? They say, how confident are you in the memory? And you can see that some people, less, some of them will be like, I'm only 50-50 on it. So there will be some people that'll be like, no, I remember it. I remember it 100% for sure. So next time you get in an argument with somebody and it's a he said, she said, and it's like, just recognize that one of you is wrong and it might be you. Okay. Related is the idea of repressed memories, right? This could potentially lead right into this. It's like, are repressed memories possible? Is it possible that you have a memory, a childhood memory that somehow comes out? like a childhood memory of sexual abuse. And all of a sudden, you hear of these people that all of a sudden, they're 35 and they're like, all of a sudden I remember it. Haven't remembered it up until now. It must have been repressed up until now. All of a sudden I have this vivid memory of these things happening to me when I was 12, type of thing. And I'm hardly, don't get me wrong, I'm hardly suggesting that these claims are never true. But it's very interesting, given now what we know about the suggestibility of memory systems and the fact that we can tell somebody that they were lost in a mall when they were 8, and 20% of people will forge that as a real memory eventually. You gotta wonder a little bit about the veracity of some of these repressed memories. You've got to think that some of them could be a matter of suggestibility. There's a video, which I'm certainly not going to play for you now. Please watch it, okay, on repressed memories. But recognize that, you can think about how these repressed memories could be implanted in the same way, unintentionally, potentially, but the same way that the lost in the mall study happens. You could imagine that somebody could say, your uncle did this, your uncle did that, whatever. And over the course of time, a memory of that event could form. Again, I'm not suggesting, there's very little evidence to suggest that this is absolutely the case, but, and I'm hardly suggesting that all repressed memory, there's no veracity to any repressed memories, or memories for childhood abuse. Hardly suggesting that. But it seems very likely that some of that is related to this lost in the mall, or at the very least, it's interesting to think about the possibility that it is. Okay, another thing, let me just see how many slides I have up. I don't think I have that many. Okay, not that many. Good. I might even make it before everybody comes home. Anyway, okay, so backfire effect. There are 2 videos on this. They're more interesting than anything else. They're kind of funny versions or real-world versions of the backfire effect. One of them's in politics, one of them's in mediation. Watch them. I'm not going to test you on them specifically, but they're very good examples. They'll bring it home for you. But the backfire effect is essentially that it's really interesting. Is that when you it's the finding that when you provide conflicting evidence. Oh, here come people. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to start it again in a couple minutes.